Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Battle Cry, the only show on news television that gets you up close with India's weapons, India's military personnel and everything in between. This week, there's very good news for India's quest for self-reliance. The Indian Air Force has decided it needs many more of a particular homegrown fighter jet.
A single jaw-dropping video clip. Signaling homegrown air power. With a massive message for self-reliance. For the very first time in India, an Indian fighter firing an Indian missile. But what does this mean for security? And what does it mean for the military? Our big focus this week on Battle Cry.
100 more LCA Tejas fighters. The homegrown fighter jet is getting a brand new lease of life. It's taken a long time coming, but the Indian Air Force has signaled to the government that it is not going to be happy with just 100 or 120 of these homegrown fighter jets. It has decided to move a case to order at least 100 more, and it gets even bigger than that. Watch this report.
A few seconds of video footage filmed over the Arabian Sea on the 23rd of August. An image that seems like a routine missile test firing, but is actually something exploding with significance. What you're looking at is a homegrown Tejas fighter firing a homegrown Astra beyond visual range air-to-air missile. This is Indian air power like India has never ever known it before. This is only the first of many tests, but the signal in these images is clear. An Indian fighter firing an Indian missile. India is pushing hard to be more self-reliant in air power and aerial weaponry. The Astra is a cutting-edge new missile capable of engaging enemy aircraft up to 80 kilometers away. To target enemy aircraft beyond visual range, the Indian Air Force currently depends on Russian R-77, Israeli Derby missiles, and of course the Meteor that has come with the Indian Air Force's new Rafale fighters. The Astra puts India in a very small club of nations that make these formidable aerial weapons. What's more, the Indian Air Force is reportedly looking to make the Astra a standard air-to-air weapon even on its new Rafale fighters. If things go as planned, the Astra could therefore potentially also be exported to other countries that fly the Rafale. It goes without saying that the Astra will likely be comparable in capability, but only a fraction of the price of foreign missiles. Apart from the missile itself, this dramatic footage from off the Goa coast also heralds a new chapter in India's Tejas program. With a slew of major expansions in the indigenous fighter project. The Tejas you see on your screen is the baseline Mark I version of the indigenous fighter. 40 of which are currently either in service or on order with the Indian Air Force. Starting next year, a highly improved version called the Tejas Mark I-A will begin deliveries to the Indian Air Force. "83 of the Mark I-A are to be inducted over the next few years. And now, things have gone to the next level entirely. Right when this episode of Battle Cry was being put together, news agency ANI reported that the Indian Air Force has decided to more than double its order of the Tejas Mark I-A and is putting together plans to order a further 100 of this fighter type. In other words, the total fleet size of the Tejas Mark I-A will be 183. And the total Tejas fleet in the Air Force will top well over 200 aircraft. An incredible feat for the program. Battlecry has learned that while the two current squadrons of the Tejas are situated in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, incoming squadrons could be based in northern parts of the country, including in frontline areas like Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab and the Northeast. A much more advanced version of the Tejas, called the LCA Mark II, sporting a more powerful engine, greater range, more advanced avionics and weapons, among a lot else, is also shaping up very well, with a rollout scheduled for this decade itself, and at least 120 of the type to be finally ordered. It is for this jet, the LCA Mark II, that India and the United States recently firmed up a partnership to assemble General Electric F414 engines in India. There's a long way to go, but the Tejas program is clearly firing on all cylinders.
And joining us now on Battle Cry to talk about the LCA Tejas, this new information that's just been reported by India today, the fallout of it, the implications. Very privileged to be joined by two former officers who probably know more about the light combat aircraft Tejas than anyone else, and they literally know it inside out. And I mean it. It's not just a way of saying things. They know this aircraft inside out. I'd like to introduce them very specifically because this is important to the show and all of those watching. Air Commodore K.A. Muthanna was part of the LCA project monitoring team of the Indian Air Force. He was embedded with the labs that were making this aircraft. He headed the National Flight Test Center, engaged in prototype test flying of the LCA. Then he took premature retirement from the Indian Air Force. He joined HAL as chief test pilot for fixed-wing aircraft. He also was the pilot in the cockpit for the maiden flights of both the initial operational clearance and final operation clearance standard production aircraft of the Tejas. Also with us, very happy to have Commodore Jaideep Malankar. He was chief test pilot of the LCA program between 2009 and 2019, a full decade of test flying. Now remember, the two people on our screen and with us here on Battle Cry aren't just pilots, they are test pilots, which means that the military, the Air Force, the Navy depends on pilots like Air Commodore Muthanna and Commodore Malankar to push aircraft to the very limits of their abilities, their envelopes, to see what they're capable of. And it's extremely crucial to knowing more about what these aircraft can actually do. Thank you very much, sirs, for your time. It's very, very valuable to us as we report, an incredible story that everyone had been hoping for, but I would like to get your views on this as well. Air Commodore Muthanna, I'd like to start with you. 100 more LCA Mark I-A to be ordered by the Indian Air Force. We all know that a couple of years ago, 83 were ordered. The big headline now is that the Indian Air Force has pushed a case for ordering 100 more. Your first reactions on this, sir? This is great news.
Yeah, first of all, Shiv, thank you for having me over here. And yes, yesterday I heard this news that they would want 100 more Mark Is and Mark I-As. And I think it's a great step. I was very, very happy to hear that because, without any breaks beyond the 83, and we can continue to produce aircraft. I understand that HAL will finally scale up to produce 24 aircraft per year. And with that, the existing contracts will run out in just about 3 years or so, by which time the Mark II may not be ready for operational uh, uh, for production test for production. And therefore, this 100 will be a great help, and it will also fill up the requisite numbers of aircraft in IL squadrons.
Comrade Malankar, your first reactions to this news. We do know that defense procurement in India is oftentimes a very slow process, but the Indian Air Force has pushed this case now. They want 100 more. It's formal.
Better late than never. You should have qualified that having 2 test pilots on, you're not going to get simple yes and no answers. You're going to get complicated, nuanced answers.
Yes.
And I'm saying this better late than never because obviously it's great news. I mean, the more number that we have of indigenous aircraft, the whole system gets lubricated, gets, there's a certain amount of minimum charge that is needed for any system to produce useful results. But if it had been done in one go, a lot of the elements would have been probably done even better in terms of the resource that would have been allocated, some of the compromises that may have had to be made because of the small numbers. I'm talking about in things like the way the production facilities are set up, the way the orders are placed for the raw materials.
Yes.
A lot of these things tend to get streamlined far better if it is known exactly what the full scope of the program is going to be like. So ordering in piecemeal tranches doesn't give you the full benefit of building it yourself and having designed it yourself.
Okay, very important perspective there, that it's better late than never. It should have happened earlier. Piecemeal ordering doesn't serve anybody's purpose and actually makes things more difficult in terms of long-term planning. But better late than never is where it's at. Air Commodore Muthanna, the LCA Tejas is, there is the Mark I. For our viewers, we'd like to keep it as simple as possible. That the Mark I is the baseline aircraft that's currently in service with the Indian Air Force. You've flown that. The Mark I-A is going to be coming online very soon. We understand that deliveries will start sometime next year. Explain to us the benefits of it, because if the Indian Air Force is committing to 83 plus 100, that's nearly 200 of the Mark I-A. How different is it? How much more improved is it compared to the baseline aircraft that the Indian Air Force has decided this is the one we need to order more of?
Yeah, okay, sure. Before I answer this question, I may have one point to make on the previous one.
Yeah.
That although, yes, we would be ordering about 100 plus 183, I hope at some point in time, you have to bring out these aircraft in different batches. And the technology is improving so fast that maybe every 40 years or so, 40 aircraft or so, you have to get in more software and maybe, if feasible, even better hardware onto this aircraft. Otherwise, it really won't make sense to make 180 aircraft of the same software standard or the same technological standard. Wherever it is possible, we must improve upon what is presently available because the technology is moving so very fast.
Right.
Yeah. So as far as the Mark I-A is concerned, you may be aware that this came out after the originally thought of Mark II with the G404 engine was, G414 engine.
Yes.
The Air Force didn't want it after some time because they realized that it would not be very optimum, that we were putting a very powerful engine on the same airframe. So what was happening was that, the overall mission performance was going down. So at that point in time, the Air Force said sometime in 2016 that we will go for the Mark I-A with the present airframe and engine combination and improved avionics and weapon systems.
Right.
That is how this Mark I-A came about.
Right.
And basically what is there in the Mark I-A is that it has got the radar has been upgraded to actively scanned array radar that is presently will remain an Israeli radar to be our own Uttam radar will come on at very soon in a couple of years, or maybe after 20, 30, 40 aircraft. That depends on how the flight test is going.
Right.
So we have an ISR radar on board. We have a full electronic warfare suite on board. That's very important. And third very important aspect is that we have the data link.
Yes.
The SDR, the SDR coming on board. This is something which at least I've been fighting for very vehemently, and I'm glad to see that it has come on. It will enable networked combat and going into, probably some kind of a combat cloud in the future.
Right.
Okay, this is an extremely good, improvement that we are going to have on this aircraft. And obviously, all the manufacturing technologies also would have been improved. So the servicing would be much easier, and the failure rates will be much lesser. So there are certain advantages like this on the Mark 1A, and I think it's a wise decision that we continue to buy 100 more of these aircraft.
Okay, very, very important and crucial. The manufacturing, the software, like Commodore Malankar said, it's this nuance that I was looking for. I most certainly was not looking for black and white answers. So I very much appreciate this level of detail. Commodore Malankar, you've been in the cockpit, you've fired missiles during test flights. I've seen famous pictures of you in a Harrier as well. One of the pictures making the headlines, images doing the headlines right now, is this video that we have on our screen of an LCA firing, conducting the first test firing of an Astra, an indigenous air-to-air missile, a beyond visual range air-to-air missile. As someone who is a test pilot, who has, tested aircraft while firing missiles, how important is this in the larger scheme of things? India is constantly looking at self-reliance in many different spheres. What did you think of this video? What do you think are the implications, sir?
So the importance of images like this is because it finally puts together in the correct perspective what exactly everybody's been talking about. Otherwise, one tends to hear only text, as in people's opinions, and largely nobody wants to hear the good news. Everybody, therefore ends up focusing on the bad news.
Yeah.
It's when the narrative can be put together properly in a composite sense and appreciated by the general public. It is only then that the correct balance between criticism of a project and supporting of a project comes about. So air shows are one perspective, but these kind of images are therefore really, really important. Now, the image itself, if you see, what does it really signify? People must absorb that these kind of systems are actually classed as systems of systems. They are too complex to be classified just as a single system.
Right.
Just like and going with that same nomenclature, they are only as good as the parts that constitute them, the systems that make it up. And by that I mean the sensors, the weapons, the power plant, the flight controls, etc. But one also expects that the overall system of systems can only be better than the individual part, can only be more than the sum of the parts,
right,
if it is put together as one concept. And that is really something which I hope comes off that image. So on the one hand, it's an indigenous aircraft, obviously with indigenous software and in it, a whole lot of indigenous design in it. And there's an indigenous missile,
yes,
which is going off. So clearly, on the one hand, we have finished we seem to have finished the full chain end to end. What is not visible, for example, is the indigenous radar inside it.
Right.
But on the other hand, also it's important to understand that these systems gain power and gain advantage, especially if they are small, only if they are completely integrated end to end. And advantage is taken of the integration opportunities to enhance, for example, performance. So one of the things that probably is still missing is because it's been done in fragments, in different silos, and they come together only at the end.
Yeah.
Is, for example, the way we carry the weapons. So you've seen my tweets over the years criticizing the number of layers between the wing and the missile, the pylon, the adapter, the launcher, etc. And clearly there's a clash of there's a clash of concepts out there between the Western concept of suspension of weapons and the Russian concept and the Indian concept. It's a little bit of a mishmash. So if we really want to create aircraft which are top of the line in terms of that full class across the world, then we also need to take advantage of the fact that we are investing in complex things like aircraft. We are investing in complex things like missiles. Now we need to step up our game and build them as one system of systems, not in parts, and then try and extract advantage from opportunistic mating of these two.
Right.
So that's something which I hope that people still feel happy looking at that image, and yet at the same time they are left wanting a little more.
Definitely wanting a little more, because as you said, the image signifies a great deal, but the questions also must be asked. Very, very important. My final round of questions to the both of you. Commodore Muthanna, we do know that the LCA Mark II is also a project. We've seen concept pictures of the LCA Mark II. It's going to have the more powerful engine. It's going to be a slightly larger aircraft. There are some airframe changes to it as well. That's also something that the Indian Air Force is looking forward to quite a bit. What are your thoughts on it, sir, on the LCA Mark II?
Shiv, on the present configuration of the Mark II, I have a different opinion.
Yeah.
Primarily because, yes, as you say, it's a more powerful engine, but it's also understood to be about a 17,500 kg plus aircraft. So, very, simplistically speaking, the mission performance, the maneuver performance is likely to be the same as the Mark I or a Mark 1A.
I see.
And the mission performance, that is, radius of action, may increase a little because of, additional fuel. And also what is being touted about is the number of missiles that it can carry, etc. Yes, it has got some advantages. But I would have personally preferred it to be a twin-engine aircraft for a couple of reasons. One is, I firmly believe that, there is a limited amount of expertise in this country on these high-tech aircraft.
Right.
And I would have wanted to see the AMCA online far quicker than what is envisaged now. Because stealth is something, I think, that is essential for future warfare.
Absolutely.
And the Mark II coming in between is likely to affect that timeline. I have no doubt in my mind, others may contend.
These are very important points that the both of you have raised. We'll have to leave it there only for constraints in time. But I thank you for giving us a great deal of food for thought. That's the reason why I got two test pilots. All of our viewers also value the many questions and the shades of grey that you've brought to what is something that is most certainly not black and white and should never be. On Battle Cry, we'll tell you the stories, we'll raise the questions, and we will continue to give you the perspective. Thank you so much to Air Commodore Muthanna and Commodore Maulankar for joining me. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you.
Well, that's it on this episode of Battle Cry. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, as we always say, India's true safety and security lies in the fact that its weapons, hopefully, will never need to be used and our personnel will never need to be sent into harm's way. Thanks for watching. See you soon.